I always love being in this spot because I am the person that's holding you up for lunch. So I'll let you determine how long you want me to talk. How's that? Again, I'm Michael Robertson. I'm the Director of Corporate Quality Assurance with Publix Supermarkets. Dr. Roberts, thank you, and Jill and everyone with FFEA for the opportunity to be here today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about recalls from a retailer perspective and talk about some of the things that we see, some of the trends that we see, and talk about some of the things that we do in terms of communicating with you as a trading partner. I don't really have to go into too much about Publix, but some folks asked some questions during the break, and Publix is growing. We're expanding at a rate of about 35 new stores a year. We currently have just almost 1,150 stores in 6 states in the Southeast. We'll enter our 7th state this year as we're growing into Virginia. And then today is an exciting day because we just started shipping product out of our newest distribution center, McCalla, Alabama, which is in the Birmingham market. So we're shipping out of there to the stores in Alabama and Tennessee today. So we're growing. Publix has been recognized a number of different awards on customer service and food safety. We're very proud of it, but we also recognize at the end of the day, our relationship that we have with our customers is really no different than the relationship that we have with you as our trading partners. It's all about trust. It is a relationship. It's communication. It's trust. And trust, 86 years of trust can be eroded in the blink of an eye when you have a negative food safety event. When we talk about food safety at our company, it's not me that's getting up on a platform leading our food safety challenges. It's our president and CEO, Todd Jones. It's our operations team. If we don't have buy-in, if you don't have buy-in, right, from the leads of your companies, the CEOs and the presidents, and they're talking about the importance of food safety, that food safety, it's part of your objective as an organization, that it's built within, it's ingrained within your culture, and everyone understands, from the accounting department to someone over in shipping to somebody that's on the line, that's in the field, everybody has a role to play in your organization when it comes to food safety. I thought it would also be helpful if I shared with you at a high level our strategy as it relates to food safety. Every organization, business unit across Publix, we all have different objective statements and metrics that we're looking at when it comes to food safety. But these are the key areas that we look at Publix when we're talking about food safety. And the number one thing that we want to achieve amongst all of these, and there's not one that's greater than the other, but we want to reduce those food safety risks before food enters the public supply chain. A lot of that starts on the farms, right? So back in 1998, I can't believe it's been that long that Publix has been working with our produce suppliers of fresh fruits and vegetables and good agricultural practices. This isn't something new for Publix. We and our produce suppliers, you all have been doing good agriculture practice programs that have been audited and verified in the fields for more than 2 decades, pushing 3. But it's GFSI, and Global Food Safety Initiative plays a part. It's not the solution; it's a part of the solution. But when we tell suppliers that we expect them to do something, we're not going to tell them to do something and not expect something out of return. So when we told our suppliers of processed foods, not on the farm fruits and vegetables, we told our suppliers that we expect you in 2009. We told them, by 2012, we're going to expect you to become GFSI compliant. And we said, by the way, we're not going to do something that you wouldn't do, you wouldn't expect us to do either. So we actually took all of our manufacturing and industrial operations and brought them GFSI as well. We've been on the distribution complex, looking at it for a retail program, and we've actually got a meeting next week in Houston at the GFSI conference to talk about, well, how do we address retail and really bring GFSI into the retail fold? I mean, yes, our stores are audited by an independent third-party auditor, but it sure would be nice to have everybody meeting a common global standard. Training our associates. Wait, before I go to training, question, I think you had a statement earlier about traceability, and we're talking about losing things at the retail level. Gosh, when was it? I remember Reggie getting up. Reggie got up at at a United meeting. It's either a United or PMA meeting 10 years ago, and we're talking about, actually it was about 8 years ago, because I remember Mike Taylor had just been appointed into his position. We're talking about the importance of traceability and on-the-farm traceability. We had all these big retailers that got into the room and food service companies, and everybody signed their name. We're going to meet all of these traceability deadlines. Do y'all remember that with the Produce Traceability Initiative? Do you know how many retailers actually achieved their commitment? None. Absolutely none that put their name onto paper. I can tell you that Publix didn't put our name onto that same paper with a commitment, but we did achieve produce traceability. So we actually do have the ability to track and maintain incoming lot codes by pallets and by cases. So we actually do have that ability, and also the ability to forward understand, what stores did that product ship to. So if any questions ever arise, let us know. We'd be happy to help figure that out. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. Training when it comes to food safety. Gosh, training you bring somebody into a training class, and how many times do you bring somebody, who here teaches food safety? I know you probably do. Who teaches food safety? Do you ever get into a classroom and, just glass, this is boring, I do not want to be here. We've got to figure out how to make food safety exciting. Sometimes food safety isn't sexy. Selling products certainly can be, but some of the food safety concepts, they're just not fun and exciting. We got to figure out how to make them invigorating and exciting. Social media certainly plays a part in that, but we're trying to figure out how to go beyond just the foundational things. And don't get me wrong, the foundational things are very important. So when you get 40,000 associates that are certified food managers at retail, that's got to happen. Or where you have these hundreds of SQF practitioners, that's got to happen. But you got to have things ongoing every day, every week. You got to keep it fresh. So even within our retail stores, we have a food safety behavior program, and we target it on the FDA foodborne illness risk factors. And I know those risk factors are focused on retail, but I think they're applicable in manufacturing, on the farm. Don't work with food if you're sick. There's some very basic principles. We actually have a picture of somebody getting sick into a trash can. It gets someone's attention. It gets someone's attention so that they can say, well, this is important. Washing your hands. So I got a picture of a guy walking out of a restroom with sticky fingers. It gets their attention. So we got to figure out how to change things up to get their attention to focus on the behaviors. Executing and measuring food safety, we've got a ton of metrics. When you have 1,150 stores and 30 different industrial operations and facilities that are being audited and inspected every day, we're dealing with big data. So we sit on a tremendous amount of data that we look and measure KPIs to understand, are we positively moving the needle on food safety? But it's not just within our operations. We also look at our suppliers' operations. I can tell you it's not just produce that we focus on. There's a huge effort right now around our poultry suppliers. So we're actually measuring and comparing the levels of Salmonella and Campylobacter of our raw poultry suppliers. Why? Well, at the end of the day, if it's packaged poultry that we sell out of our meat department, we don't want our customers to inadvertently have a cross-contamination event in their home kitchen. Likewise, we don't want to have a cross-contamination event in our delis, where we have all of our fried chicken and our rotisserie chicken. So we're actually measuring and comparing and putting out scorecards so that we can compare this to our suppliers and hold people accountable for improving food safety. Fourth one, this is why I'm here today. We want to remove recalled product from the marketplace as quickly as possible. We don't have every single recall event that the FDA has, and I'm very grateful that we don't. But I'll show you some numbers, and you can see some trends that we're looking at, and they're quite alarming when you look at the growing amount of recalls that we have. And I've been doing recalls for 20 years now, and it's not gotten any better. And then lastly, but certainly not least, is improving food safety with our customers. When we look at this farm to fork, boat to throat continuum, you've got to include the customers. We've got to figure out how do we help our customers address and understand the importance that they have a role to play as well in maintaining the food and preventing your hands from going into those blueberry containers at the stores and popping blueberries in the stores. And that's not a habit that people need to be doing. So these are some trends that I pulled from a company, Stericycle. They put out quarterly reports when they're looking at trends. They put this out on a quarterly basis, and they look at all of the key recalls and the top categories of recalls. There's a number of poultry-related recalls in terms of poundage this past quarter. And this is both FDA and USDA products. But again, the trends, I don't know if there's a pointer on here, the trends are similar to what was already reported: bacterial contamination, undeclared allergens. These are very consistent themes that FDA has been reporting on for, 3-4 consecutive years now, as we talk about the RFR reports that are published. These trends, they're pretty static. When we look at recalls at Publix, we break it down into two different categories. I'm going to start on the left side today. On a quarterly basis, actually this is an annual basis. So we look at total recalls and what we call within Publix a Severity 1 recall. If you talk with Loretta Wagner, who's our recall coordinator, she might mention the word Severity 1. And we don't break it down Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, market withdrawal, because when you're dealing with almost 1,150 stores, you have to keep things very simple, very basic, so that it's crystal clear to understand. If you have a Severity 1, drop everything. You have 3 hours to take care of this. Remove the product, account for the product, reconcile all the product. UPCs are locked out so that the product cannot scan across the front end register. Signage has to go up. There's a number of things that have to occur. So our stores understand a Sev1 recall, Listeria contamination of Sargento cheese Friday night. That recall went out to our stores around 7 o'clock. They had until 10 o'clock to execute it. So out of 1,129 stores Friday night, 3 of them didn't get it done. We can actually track and understand who opened the recall message and understand time-stamped by associate name who entered the information. And yes, we provide that information to the FDA so that they can actually have that as part of their closeout report to send back to headquarters. Yes? FDA friends? Awesome, cool. So the trends, though, that we're looking at, when you look from 2013 to last year, we went from having 38 Severity 1 recalls to 91. And the two leading drivers of that, allergens are increasing, allergen-related recalls are increasing, and recalls due to Listeria monocytogenes contamination. This time last year, there was a significant amount of Listeria-related recalls with frozen fruits and vegetables. I don't know if y'all remember that. There was a number of studies that were being done. There was a lot of whole genome sequencing data that was done that was actually linking things back to plants that weren't originally thought to have been involved in these recalls. And we're still seeing a lot of these recall events. Yes, ma'am? Mm-hmm. And the more educated the consumer is, read the label, know what it is, the more where to contact. They will go to Publix and complain, they will go to us and complain. So it's a lot of factors coming down, but yeah, we can identify them and now we know specifically this is a big part. Yeah. And that's correct. A lot were suspected contamination. When we look at the categories, though, of what we see at Publix over on your left side, produce isn't the leading driver. Produce, I think we had, 20-some odd? Yeah, 23 recalls related with produce. Dry grocery was the #1 driver of recalls. This is all recall events. So it might have been a mislabeling, mispackaged. Maybe they put the wrong product in the wrong box. Dry grocery is by far the leading driver, and second to that is dairy frozen. I remember there was another Listeria monocytogenes related recall of a supplier here in Florida, Valentini ice cream, back in November. Ice cream is still a significant risk, and it was identified as such when FDA published their updated draft guidance on Listeria prevention. So, Amy, where's Amy? You and I, Publix, Duda, we've got a business relationship, right? So my question to you, how should Supplier support retail during recalls? So I hope you don't mind me picking on you.
programs in place for us to adhere to besides any type of FDA notification. So I have a notification system with you directly. I provide you with any kind of lot, package, date, processing, identification that I share to you.
Yeah.
We're pretty quick. We have a really good system that we can identify back to the field.
Yeah.
Any product that might have any type of contamination.
Yeah. And certainly Duda, has a lot of robustness in the food safety systems. It's well thought out and designed. But I might offer an alternative. Right? Thank you, Dr. Roberts. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody wants to have a recall, but they're going to happen. They're going to happen. So that's why you're here today. It's incumbent upon all of us to understand, what are those tools, those things that we need to have in our toolbox, so that we can pull them out and address these recall events. Because at the end of the day, we have a common shared mutual goal. We want to protect our customers that we serve. Right? Nobody wants someone to get sick. So what do we want to do? We have to maintain the communication, and it can't be at the time of the recall. I've got business cards I'm happy to give to all of you. We all have BlackBerries with FDA, smartphones. We're in food safety. We're in this 24/7. We have to be. But we also, I put this comment up here. This is something that a gentleman by the name of Mike DePaula, he was the group vice president of asset protection. He's retired now, worked for the Albertsons companies back in Boise, Idaho. And Mike grew up in loss prevention. He's a retired captain with the Chicago PD. And Mike worked an event. There was a huge dairy contamination at a milk plant. It was actually the Jewel Osco dairy plant up in Chicago. At the time, this plant was the FDA model plant. This is where FDA sent people to be trained on dairy programs. This is back in the 80s. They had a contamination event. Thousands of people came down with salmonellosis across the Midwest. And Mike, he always reminded me, there's three things that plaintiff's attorney is going to ask you. What do you know? When did you know about it? And what did you do about it? I dare say it's probably the same questions that the DOJ is going to be asking your CEO and president at the same time. So if they're not made aware of events, we have to make certain that we're elevating information to the right people in a timely manner, and done so in an effort that not only protects the customers, that is goal number one, but you also have to protect your interests as an organization, as a company. So, real-world scenarios. I love real-world scenarios. This occurred Friday night, yeah. And by the way, so Friday night we had three major events. We had the cucumber and squash. We had the y'all didn't hear about the cucumber and squash. We had what was it? A&D zinc ointment that was recalled. Wasn't a class 1 recall. It was a labeling issue. And Sargento cheese. So 3 major events going on, all after 5 o'clock, right? Stock market's closed, so retailers, we all know that we've got to have people on call from 5 o'clock to midnight, because that's when everything happens in the food safety world for retailers. So this one was really interesting. This actually started late Thursday afternoon, got to my attention Friday after 5. So Supplier of squash sent a whole bunch of product to Publix. We actually have 4 produce packing facilities. This one facility happens to be in Jacksonville. So they sent us a bunch of organic squash. They didn't tell us. They called us and said, hey, by the way, we sent this to you. We had it tested for listeria, and it's positive. Real world scenario. We sent you this product, tested it for what do you mean you tested it for listeria and you shipped it? Yes, that's what they did. We said, is this monocytogenes, Welchmeria, inocua? What type of Listeria are we dealing with? Is it a pathogen? Don't know. Help us understand. What do you think we had to do?
They're sent in big crates.
Huge crates.
And you guys repackage them.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we're actually repackaging them into smaller container, tray pack of 4, or something else that we're going to make in a convenient package to the customer. It could be throughout the store, yeah. It's sold in bulk, it's in packaging. I'm sure someone on the aprons, Simple Meals may have had it. So yeah, it could be throughout the store. Fortunately, but when the supplier contacted